That's number one. You kind of reset your
painful, tender to the touch. May also
same shoulder length and the other. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Real Health Podcast with Brandy and Amir. I am Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor, and Brandy is the brains,
yes,
and the looks, and the laugh. Anyways, she's probably the reason you watch.
maybe half of it. You could be the other half.
Right. Well, a lot of people call her Dr. Brandy as a compliment.
Which is just really fun for me. I really do correct people
Yeah.
a lot. And
Yeah.
then I just stop after a year. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
just call me whatever you want.
When you know as much as she does, you probably pass some kind of doctorate test. Just take a test and get your doctorate.
Yeah, I love talking about it, but I don't want the level of responsibility that you have. There's a lot of responsibility that goes into that you take on with being any kind of doctor. You have somebody's health in your hands.
Right.
So I like to help from the outside.
Well, like one of our patients has a doctorate in microbiology.
It's awesome.
She doesn't have anybody's health in her hands. She's looking at microbes.
Yeah,
You know.
that's true.
Anyways, you could be the doctor. You could get a doctorate in podcast commentary.
Ooh, that sounds
It probably
fun.
doesn't. You remember we had that guy who came and he he said he was a doctor of hypnotherapy, and we're like, do you remember that? Like,
Yes.
Like he had a doctorate in hypnosis or something like that, and we're like, oh, cool. Where did you get that from? And he named some university, and then it turned out he had created the university. And
Yeah,
he had created
the program.
the program himself,
And put himself
he was
through it.
he was the first and only graduate from the program, and he had given himself a doctorate, and it wasn't accredited, but we
So basically, you're saying I could be my own doctor.
it's been
I
done.
love it. But I will not
There
do
you have
that.
it.
I
Doc-
will get real credentials too.
Anyways, but that guy had us fooled for a while. Like we all called him doctor.
Yeah.
He was subleasing space from us.
Yeah, that's so funny.
For a little while.
That was a bazillion years
We're
ago.
like, what in the world? Anyways, we fall for stuff all the time. You're probably falling for things too. So, Real Health Podcast is where we take mainstream media news about health and wellness. Then we read those articles, we summarize it for you, we tell you what it says, then we tell you what it should mean to you and how to apply it to your life. And the focus and the purpose of why we do this is so we can help you feel better, get stronger, live longer, and feel younger. You see, a lot of people have been asking, why are you doing this podcast? Isn't it a lot of work? And I go, well, we do it anyways.
Right.
Like we used to read these articles anyways. We used to sit down and discuss them anyways. We'd have great discussions. We're like, we could film this.
Right.
And others could benefit from that. So basically, if you watch this podcast, you're kind of getting an inside look on, what we do when we're not with patients. We're discussing latest trends in health and wellness, and we talk about how we can use those to benefit our patients, but now we get to benefit you as well. So we're grateful that you watch. And we're not stopping. We're gonna keep going.
I heard another stat this morning. I was going through a couple of videos, and not our videos, but somebody else's. And they said that 50% of all podcasts had one episode. It was like a one and done.
Wow.
And then it's like another 39%, I think, that have like less than 3. Like it was some
Wow.
crazy stats. So
Yeah.
I am so proud of us that we're over a year.
Yeah.
So we are well beyond what, at least
Right.
half of all podcasts have.
Thanks to all you guys.
Yeah. So
Yeah, for your encouragement.
thanks for watching. Keep sharing it out with your
Yeah.
family and friends, and
It was
leave
cool.
us
We had a
comments.
patient walk in this office, and he was telling his wife, "Hey, look, that's where they filmed the podcast."
That's so
I thought,
fun.
that's cool. You're in famous place.
That's right.
Come by and visit us. But we are going to have some guests.
We are.
Soon.
Yes.
We have one scheduled.
We have-
maybe not next week.
Yeah, we do. We actually have 2 guests scheduled over the next couple of recordings, so I'm really excited. We are going to be diving into a little bit more of a sports and athlete focused podcast for the next few. So we're going to kick that off today with talking about a couple of athletes from the Olympics, which is going to be really fun. And then we'll get into some more specific type of athletes. We're going to be talking specifically about bodybuilders. We're going to be talking specifically about basketball players. And then I think we'll probably also be talking about rugby and soccer a little bit later on in the recordings as well. So please pay attention, be watching for that, because especially these athlete specific or sport specific podcasts, I think you're going to grab a lot of value from those.
A
So
lot of us have kids in sports, and I was reading one of the stats. There's 3.5 million sports injuries just with kids.
yeah,
There's
it's
30
crazy.
million kids in sports.
Right.
3.5 million. That means more than 10% of kids are getting injured in
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a lot. And unfortunately, a lot of parents don't even know who to go to or what to do for those specific injuries.
Well, because
And we don't always rehab them properly.
right, but the thing is, the prevention would be key. I mean, if we check,
100%.
we check and make sure their body's moving properly, their tendons, their ligaments, their
Right.
bones, their joints, everything's lined up properly, functioning properly. Coordination is
Yeah.
key. Balance, neurologic balance. So many people, we tell people, then don't do this at home because you'll run into walls and break things. But in a controlled environment, someone's watching, you close your eyes and march in place. If you turn to one side, that means that side of your body is neurologically weaker than the other.
Yeah.
And so we balance those things before the kid goes out on the field or on the court to play sport. And then rates of injuries drop dramatically. We check to see if someone's prone to an ACL tear, someone's prone to ankle sprains.
Yep.
Those are powerful things that we can find. When you wait till the kid gets injured and then you start to take care of them, it's like putting on your seatbelt right after you crashed your car.
Yeah, exactly. And I think knowing like who's the best kind of provider to go to really be able to look at my child's health from, from a health and an athletic standpoint, from a musculoskeletal standpoint, from a nervous system standpoint, it is so valuable. I think most parents don't even realize that while a lot of our children may not become professional athletes, and some of that will be because of injury. There's plenty of children who probably had that capacity of that ability, but because they didn't know how to take care of their body to begin with. And this starts with great nutrition, because if we're not feeding our kids are in a developmental, physiological and mental and emotional growth process. And that growth is exponential, as we all know. So to not be feeding the body properly during those times, can result in undue injury or it's just crazy that not exercising properly. Some of these kids are not exercising at all and starting a sport, and their body is just not equipped to be able to do that. So a lot of kids aren't stretching. Most parents, they may not even know, unless they're in a health and wellness industry or lifestyle, they may not understand how important that is for their kids. And so I think that, we know how sick our country is. So if our country, majority of those individuals are not leading a wellness lifestyle, we're also probably not teaching our children a wellness lifestyle, which means we're just perpetuating this circumstance of having more sick people in our country. We need to stop and start addressing this before we get sick, before our kids are older.
There is such a thing as susceptibility to illness and susceptibility to injury. And it has to do with your tolerance to stress. Because when your stress levels go above your tolerance to stress, you're more susceptible to getting injured. That's the person who bends down to pick up a penny off the floor, they throw out their back. They're like, it wasn't even heavy,
Right.
but I threw out my back. It was because your tolerance was lower than the stress level you're under. Again, that's what I wrote my second book about.
Yeah.
But what do you say we dive in and talk about this? Because that leads us to aging. Because people are
Yeah.
aging prematurely, and they really shouldn't. So this first article is from Medical Research, and the title article says, "Scientists find humans age dramatically in two bursts at age 44 and 60."
Yeah, what's funny is most people actually talk as if it does happen in a burst, right? Most people don't go, oh, over the past 10 years, every day I've been feeling a little more tired and a little more achy. Nobody says that, but they say, I hit 40 and all of a sudden I feel. That's what you hear majority of the time.
A lot of people say your prime health should be at age 40. and then there's a steady decline. But apparently, it's not a steady decline; it's a burst.
It's a burst. And at around 44.
I certainly hope I don't burst. I am past that first one. I don't know if I've burst yet.
I'm okay letting my muscles burst. Those can burst, like burst out.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost flexed on you. Did you see that?
That's a bulge.
Yeah.
Yours,
Okay.
yours is a bump.
Someday it will be a burst.
Well, wait till we have our bodybuilders on the podcast.
That's right.
We'll ask them if they can flex.
I look teeny tiny compared to them.
Oh yeah.
I look teeny tiny
we do
outside
have a lot of episodes called "Building Better Bodies" with Devin
Yeah.
and the docs.
And we're going to have Devin back, actually.
We'll bring Devin back. Yeah,
I was talking to him about
He's a
that.
lot bigger. Yeah, go watch his old videos on building better bodies. That was our first podcast.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so anyways, go watch those episodes, and he's pretty big in those, but now he's bigger.
Yeah.
He's put on like an extra 20 pounds
I
of
know.
muscle.
He's amazing.
Anyways, here's this article, Why Are We Aging at 44 and then at 60? It's so weird. If you've noticed a sudden accumulation of wrinkles, aches, and pains, or a general sensation of having grown older almost overnight, there may be a scientific explanation. Research suggests that rather than being a slow and steady process, aging occurs at least 2 accelerated bursts.
Interesting.
The study, which tracked thousands of different molecules in people aged 25 to 75, detected 2 major waves of age-related changes at around age 44 and again at 60. The findings could explain why spikes in certain health issues, including musculoskeletal problems and cardiovascular disease, occur at certain ages. We're not just changing gradually over time. There are some really dramatic changes, said Professor Michael Snyder, a geneticist and director of the Center for Genomic and Personalized Medicine at Stanford University and senior author of the study. See, this is what I was talking about. There's such a thing as personalized medicine. That's a field. Like you can get a doctorate in personalized medicine.
It's very clear that it's not being practiced currently.
And what's the opposite of personalized medicine? Shouldn't all medicine be personalized?
Well, should be and is 2 different things, but you have to be in a healthcare system, not a sick care system, in order for that to actually work.
Huh. All right. Well, that's a side note.
And a conversation for another time.
He said, it turns out the mid-40s is a time of dramatic change, as is the early 60s, and that's true no matter what class of molecules you look at. The research tracked 108 volunteers who submitted blood and stool samples and skin, oral, and nasal swabs every few months for between 1 and nearly 7 years. Researchers assessed 135,000 different molecules, RNA, proteins, and metabolites, and microbes, the bacteria, viruses, and fungi living in the gut and on the skin of the participants. The abundance of most molecules and microbes did not shift in a gradual chronological fashion. When the scientists looked for clusters of molecules with the largest shifts, they found these transformations tend to occur when people were in their mid-40s and early 60s.
The only thing I would like to see with this, I always like to know a little bit more about the participants, their background, like pharmacology, like what medications they're
It's
all
not a big
on.
number. They only took 108 people.
Yeah, and they actually didn't, it sounds like they didn't do it from the same time frame too, because they said they took swabs every 2 months for between 1 and 7 years, or nearly 7
Yep.
years. So that means some participants only participated in a year, some may have done nearly 7 years but that tells me there's inconsistency probably in the data that they have.
Yeah.
I would like to see a little bit more of like,
I would
these
take
are
100
people.
people at each age. I'd take 125-year-olds, 126-year-olds, 127-year-olds.
Yep. And then you have to continue that too. And then I also want maybe 50 of those, out of each age bracket to be like no pharmacology use, no medication at all. And then some that are on maybe similar medications,
Right.
statins or something. And let's really see the true nature of that. I would like to see maybe 50 of those who had no COVID vaccine and 50 that did, because we know there can be dramatic changes in someone's health when you add anything different into the body long term like that.
Oh yeah, there's too
So,
many parameters though. I mean, just even the vaccine you're talking about, it seems like a lot of the elderly who took it had no reactions to it, and a lot of young people who took it did
yeah,
have reactions to it. And I mean, and the data is still coming out.
yeah,
We don't know how many or what it was. And then, well, I don't want to get too deep into that. But yeah, everything affects us.
yes.
Everything affects us.
So it's so hard, especially in our country, I think, to really go through studies like this, because we allow so many toxins into our environment as it
Yeah.
is, that how our bodies express health or the lack thereof in the midst of all of these toxins that we're constantly that are in our environment, it just changes things. So I think these are really hard studies to truly have great feedback from.
I agree. Now they thought in the mid 40s aging spike was unexpected and initially assumed to be a result of perimenopausal changes in women, skewing results of the whole group, but the data revealed similar shifts were happening in men in their mid 40s also. Molecules linked to skin and muscle aging changed at both time points. Previous research suggested that a later spike in aging may occur around the age of 78, but the latest study could not confirm this because the oldest participant was 75.
Right.
So where are they getting that? Anyways, Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease risk showing a steep uptick after 60 was one of the things they looked at. Some of the changes could be linked to lifestyle or behavioral factors. For instance, the change in alcohol metabolism could result from an uptick in consumption in people's mid 40s, which can be stressful period of life. So, but why didn't they survey these people? It's only 108 people.
I know.
Why didn't they ask them, are you drinking? You
Right.
know, and oh, you aged more because you were drinking. There's a clear appearance difference in people who drink a lot.
Oh,
They
yeah.
look different. People
Yeah,
who are on
100%.
drugs, illegal drugs, they look different. You can
Very
say by
much.
their complexion, their tone, their expressions, their walk,
You can look at
everything's
their nails. You can see deficiencies health wise,
yeah.
even in individuals, the strength and vitality of their nails as well. So, I think it's interesting. It's an interesting study that they did, an interesting idea. I'm disappointed in the results from it. I would actually like to see this compared against like the blue zone
Yeah.
individuals, because those are individuals that are leading a much less toxic life. Their life expectancy is much higher. I would love to, like, let's look at their microbes. Let's look at everything in their health and
Yeah.
compare it to everyone else,
Right.
because I think those findings would be vastly
So
different.
you and I are both past age 44.
What?
It's true.
What?
Yeah.
I don't know what he's
You
talking
need to
about.
come to terms with that. And
Not happening.
what did you experience at 44? Did you experience a big shift, sudden
When
aging?
did that happen? Okay, but in all fairness,
For
I don't.
for you, that would have been close to 4 years ago.
Okay. Well, good thing for us right now. I don't remember 4 years ago very well. I don't know. I think I feel better now than I did 4 or 5 years ago. However, I've made some, I've increased the great things in my routines. I've increased those to help aid in slowing the aging process, lifting weights, trying to make sure my nutrition is cleaner, the right supplements at the right times, not just taking 100 supplements because, it's, somebody said on TikTok it was good. Just being very intentional with my health. I feel better now. I sleep better now than I did. I mean, there's so many things.
Do you look at pictures of yourself from 5 years ago and see a difference?
Oh, 100%.
You look
Uh,
better now.
oh yeah, I'm leaner now. Um, I think my hormones are in better balance and control. I'm getting better quality sleep. Yeah, I mean, I don't I don't have, yeah, I think my macros are more balanced.
I think I looked a lot younger 5 years ago.
Uh,
Five for me. I mean, I turned 50 in less than a month. So, so that'd be 44 would have been 6 years ago. But there's a difference in what my face looked like six
yeah,
years ago than it does today. Like I think I looked a lot younger than my age
maybe. We'll have to go back to
6 years
pictures
ago.
6 years
Yeah,
ago.
but do that if you're over 44, check it out and see if they're right. See if you did suddenly age. Now, they were talking about heart disease and
Gut health and
musculoskeletal issues and things like that. They did mention wrinkles briefly,
yeah,
but I do feel like I have more wrinkles.
yeah.
And I felt like not much was changing until the mid 40s, and all of a sudden there was like a
Okay.
little jump. But just appearance, I'm stronger.
Yeah,
I have more endurance. Um, I feel youthful. I
yeah,
spring out of bed in the mornings,
yeah.
and
And you
and
get up early.
I get up early, and first thing I do is what? I do my
You
stretches.
stretch. Yeah,
Yeah, I do all my stretches. First thing, I drink a ton of water and then do all my
yeah.
stretches. But these are healthy habits that I think play a role in that.
Oh,
But
for sure.
you don't have to age. I don't know. If people read
And I
that,
think you can slow it down, even if there is a slow aging process. I know that the lifestyles and the toxins and our environment speed that up
yeah,
dramatically. I do not think that we should be aging at the rate that we're aging
I
as
agree.
a culture.
I agree.
But I mean, you guys who've been listening to the podcast from the beginning, or even for several episodes, have probably heard how much we hammer government agencies like the FDA for not protecting us. Like
Hmm.
their job is to protect us and our environment and make sure that what they're allowing out on the market is safe.
Yeah.
And time again, they're
They
not looking
approve
out for
toxic
us.
chemicals, but they want to approve vitamin C. I
Right.
mean, it's hilarious. So
It just
none
doesn't
none
make
none
any
of your
sense.
vitamins are FDA approved.
Correct.
But yellow food dye number 5 is approved.
Yeah.
High fructose corn syrup is FDA approved for
Yeah.
consumption.
Yeah. PSA
Good.
PSA chemical, like the forever chemicals, it's fine.
Yep.
So, guys, it's not fine. Nobody's going to look out for you but you.
Yeah.
So make sure that and we always say, don't think you can go back to your house and go, oh my gosh, I need to get rid of all of these and I need to do this.
Mm-mm.
If you
No, no, no,
just
no.
change 1% of 100 things,
Yeah.
your lifestyle has
Listen. Exactly.
improved
The
dramatically.
greatest we did this on Super Agers. That was what, 3 episodes ago, 4 episodes ago.
Maybe more. Yeah.
Super Agers. And we looked at the article. It said the biggest parameter was healthy relationships.
Yeah.
People who get dementia had poor relationships. It didn't have to do with, and I'm not advocating this, but there wasn't a dramatic difference between from mental health standpoint, a mental emotional health standpoint. Drinking didn't affect it that much, smoking didn't affect it that much, exercise or not exercise, bad food, good food. The biggest thing was
Was
healthy
relationships.
relationships. Listen, hang out with people you like. Make sure you protect those relationships. Live for others, not for yourself. Just
Yeah.
give, serve, help. Guess what? You're going to live a long time. I promise you.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. You
Very
want to live
much.
healthy and long time, live for others and do good. Where do you say we go on?
Yeah.
And I don't like that article. You're not, they're wrong. You're not going to age at 44 and 60.
And
It's ridiculous.
aging is somewhat preventable. There are things you can do to slow the process down.
Yeah. I mean, we all age, but you can prolong life
Yeah.
or you can prolong death.
Hmm.
2 people can die at the age of 100.
Yeah.
But one can spend the last 20 years of their life on drugs and oxygen tube and attached to a machine in a hospital bed for 20 years,
Very
or
little quality of life.
horseback riding and hiking and enjoying life.
Right.
They both live to be 100.
Right.
So even life expectancy is misleading.
Yes.
All right. This is from Forbes. Do you want to do this one? No, we were going to do the other one.
Yep.
Let's go. This is also from Forbes. There you go. That works. Forbes magazine. This is business section, which is funny because it has nothing to do with business.
Or
Slapped
does it?
slapped cheek. Virus rising in U.S. CDC warns. Here's what to know about human parvovirus B19.
So fun.
It bothers me when they give it letters and numbers. I go, is there a B18 and a B20? Is there an A19? There isn't. It's just
There
that.
might be. I mean, there's who knows? I mean,
I don't
this
think there is.
particular virus has 3 different names. It's sometimes called fifth disease because it was the 5th of the leading childhood viruses, like with measles, mumps, chickenpox,
Rubella.
rubella. So that's where the 5th disease comes in, or slap cheek because
They look like they were slapped on the cheek.
yeah, you get a little bit of a rash after. When I heard this, I was like, man, that sounds just like roseola's, and they are very similar. Matter of fact, clinically, it's really hard to tell the two apart. So both roseola's and the parvovirus B19 function similarly, but they are not the same.
So it's it says a highly contagious respiratory infection known as parvovirus B19, sometimes called fifth disease or slap cheek disease, on the rise in the United States, particularly among young children. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention warned on Tuesday, signaling a comeback after COVID-19 pandemic precautions slashed cases and in turn
This makes me
immunity
mad.
against the seasonal. Well, it's saying it reduced people's immunity against this virus.
Well, they're saying it slashed the cases though. It says the COVID-19 pandemic precautions slashed the cases of parvo virus
Which
B19.
is not necessarily a good thing.
Well, and I don't think it was the case anyway, because here was the challenge in the COVID-19 days, is that the tests that they used to detect COVID also had detected several other strains of other viruses. And they couldn't necessarily extrapolate COVID from some of those other
Yeah, they
viruses.
called it all COVID.
So we don't know that there was less parvovirus B19. We just know that they weren't testing for it and they weren't counting it. So because they stopped even counting flu, they were not capturing that data or
tracking it,
reporting on it. And so when they make comments like this, it kind of irks me a little bit because I'm like, you don't really know that, first of all. And we don't really know that. They kind of allude to the fact that they think some of the precautions we took is what helped to not have those cases.
But I mean, I'll give them credit. They're not saying that it was a good thing because it did reduce immunity.
Right.
So
Which
the
is nice that they're
isolation, the
admitting.
masks, all that stuff, it reduced immunity. So anyways, let me go through this real quick. Parvovirus B19 is a common seasonal virus prevalent during the late winter, spring, and early summer. I mean, it's probably every season. Look at that. Just and usually spread by airborne respiratory droplets produced when people talk, breathe, cough, or sneeze, when people do anything. And it's in every season. When people do anything, it's contagious.
You're safe in the summer.
It says summer too. Early summer.
Early summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just late summer and fall, you're safe.
Yeah. Whew.
But I bet you people get it then too. I mean, anyways, because viruses don't look at the calendar. Have you noticed?
I have.
Yeah, they don't have their own calendar. They just like attack whenever they're just.
I bet they're looking for a host that's viable.
We call them opportunistic.
Right.
They go after anyone whose immune system is low. You know what they are like? Someone I think it was Fred Barge gave this analogy. He's passed away. He was a chiropractor. He said viruses and bacteria that make you sick are like vultures. If you see vultures somewhere, it's not because they killed an animal. It's because the animal died and then
found
the
an
vultures
opportunity.
showed up because they found it. So your tissues were already weak and sick, and then the bacteria took hold and grew. Everybody has strep in their throat,
Right.
but they don't overgrow until your immune system tanks. Everybody has viruses that they're exposed to. Believe it or not, every breath, your first breath as a baby when you were born in the hospital had trillions of bacteria and viruses go into your lungs in an instant the second you were born.
Yep.
But you didn't get sick from all of those. It's because they're vultures. It's opportunistic. So anyways, coming back, infections are usually asymptomatic or cause mild flu-like illness with symptoms like fatigue, headache, muscle aches, fever, with many going on to experience a second stage of illness with symptoms like a characteristic facial rash, often called a slapped cheek rash, followed by joint pain, swelling, and a general body rash. Most infections usually go away on their own after a few weeks. Few weeks? It better be sooner than that. And there are no specific treatments other than tackling symptoms, though for some people with blood disorders or a weakened immune system, there you go, the disease can lead to serious complications such as severe and potentially fatal drop in blood cells, which is called anemia. For pregnant people, the virus can also spread from mother to fetus, and the CDC says there is a 5 to 10% chance of adverse fatal outcome, including miscarriage, with the risk of this higher during the earlier stage of pregnancy. The CDC says people are the most contagious during the first few days of symptoms and are unlikely to remain contagious after the rash appears, at which point it is usually safe to go back to work or school.
Which is the same as roseola's. Once the rash is
Once the
there,
rash
that
shows up,
signifies
you're
the
not
end
contagious.
of the infection.
There are no vaccines to prevent parvovirus B19 infection, and the CDC advises people to follow general respiratory precautions like covering the mouth and nose when coughing, sneezing, practicing proper hand washing and cleaning frequently touched surfaces, as well as potentially wearing a mask when around others. Now, health officials stress the risk from the virus to the general public is low. So I'm not going to read all this, but they talked about how this is not a reportable disease. So we
Right.
really don't know what the numbers are. We're guessing that the numbers are on rise
100%.
based on what doctors may have or have not said.
But there is some good news though, because they said the majority of adults in the U.S. show signs of having been exposed to parvovirus B19 at some point in their lives. The
Yes.
CDC said with 50% of adults having detectable antibodies at age 20 and more than 70% by age 40.
So chances are, like, you
By
had a
age 20 and then
cold,
40. Right.
but it wasn't really a cold. It was parvovirus. And you were just like, it's just a bad cold. And then you recovered. But it turns out now you're immune the rest of your life.
Yes.
70% of people are immune by the age of 40.
Yes.
And most of them, I don't think, know that they had parvovirus disease.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when Naveed, our first, was a baby, I felt like every month we had a different childhood illness.
Yeah.
And we were just going through them. I'd be calling his pediatrician going, Dr. Rothschild, here are the symptoms. She's like, oh, it sounds like roseola's. He'll be getting a rash here soon. Just watch for that. And we were just like ticking him off. I'm like, okay, here we go. It was really great.
I mean,
Now he's a very healthy young man.
He's a big guy.
Yes, he is a big guy.
14 years old, and he's big.
6'1".
Jeez.
Growing his muscles too. That's fun.
Yeah, I take him to the gym because I want to show him he may be taller than me, but I'm still stronger than him.
By the way, it does say, and this is one other thing I wanted to point out, is that between 2022 and 2024, the CDC said the rate of antibodies for the parvovirus B19 in that cohort jumped from 15% to 40% this June 2024. So that means that while we had lost some of that herd immunity and only about 15%, of kids had that from 5 to 9, which makes sense because if they were all, home the entire time and not out in the community, but already, I mean, think about that. Already jumped from 15 to 40%. That's a huge jump.
That's a good jump.
That's a great jump. So that means being out in the world,
Yeah.
Continue to wash your hands. Well, you should always have been washing your hands, but not everybody is wearing masks. And thank goodness we're not seeing that all the time anymore. Yeah. And now we see that our herd immunity is coming back.
Yeah, I mean, and we're stronger for it, and that's the thing. It's like you look at us, you go, oh, these guys, they must be bad parents because they celebrate when their kid gets sick, and that's not true. We're celebrating the immunity that comes from it, and we know these things aren't going to kill the kid.
Yeah.
First thing our pediatrician would always say is, how's he doing? We're like, he's running around playing. Like, well, then there's nothing wrong.
Right.
Let him run it. Let it run its course.
Right.
Now, if he's lethargic in bed, shivering, that's different. He didn't have that, thankfully. You know, but if he does, then I'm not saying don't treat it. Just laugh and let it go.
Right.
So, anyways, they talked about how there's vaccines for measles, rubella, chickenpox, roseola, measles. Sorry, I said measles. Mumps is the other one.
But some of those are newer. For instance, I never had the chickenpox vaccine.
Neither did I.
I never had it. I had chickenpox,
Yep,
and
me
I
too.
lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, it's like
I
kind
don't
of
think
a
I'm worse off
rite
from
of
it.
passage.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of sherbet. Loved
No
sherbet.
kids get chickenpox anymore, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not going to say one way or the other. And listen, when it comes to the vaccine issue, I always want everybody to decide on their own.
Yeah. And just
So
do your due diligence. I've had a lot of our patients and people that know us and know the area that we're in. We do a lot of research, and I always send people to nvic.org. It's the National Vaccine Information Coalition, and it's a nonprofit that just puts all the information there at your fingertips. So while your providers are not always great about giving you the inserts and giving you informed consent, allowing you to make informed consent for the vaccines, they just we're in a world where where they want to strong arm us and not allow us to make our own medical decisions. But you have a right to make a medical decision for you and your
yeah,
children. And you can't do that without the right information. So do your due
right.
diligence.
So here's an example of doing your due diligence. You look at the data. Let's take the latest vaccine that went through warp speed. Instead of 3 to 4 years of research, they put it out in 9 months. You look at that data, you go, okay, well, most people who took it didn't get injured by it. But then I just saw a podcast the other day of all these lawsuits against all the manufacturers. 36,000 people have documented serious injuries where they've ended up in wheelchairs and so on.
Right.
They say allegedly, please, I'm not accusing anyone of anything. Allegedly, it was instantly from when they got it. They had this, and so they say adverse reactions are rare, and they CDC says that about every one of these shots. It's rare. So then Brandy said, do your diligence, right? So my due diligence is, what is the definition of rare?
Right.
And guess what they say? They say it's not really defined what rare means. Somewhere between 1 in 1,000 and 1 in 1,000,000 is considered rare. Well, 1 in 1,000 is 1,000 times worse than 1 in 1,000,000.
Right. Yeah, it's like the FDA's definition of all natural. You can there is such a broad definition of what is considered all natural according to the FDA, and what chemicals could still be considered under the all natural. Like, no chemical should be considered under the all natural label, in my opinion. All natural means it comes from the plant.
Yeah, it grew by itself.
Like,
Without intervention.
right. And why then do we need to add something else into it? So those definitions are super important, because my definition of something and your definition of something can be vastly different.
Yeah.
And what they're adopting as the definition versus what it says in the actual dictionary
Right.
could be vastly different.
I also firmly believe that if there is a risk, whether it's 1 in 1,000 or 1 in 1,000,000, if there's a risk, it shouldn't be forced.
Oh, 100%.
Bottom line, it shouldn't be forced. Unless you can prove that there is zero chance of injury,
Right.
and 100% efficacy, both have to be there, meaning 100% of the time it protects you from getting sick.
Right.
100% of the time, guaranteed. You won't get sick, you won't transmit it. Guaranteed 100%, and zero chance of any adverse reaction. You can't force it.
And
It should not be
if
forced.
you can't, then you also need to provide culpability, because
Well, yeah.
somebody has to answer to that. If you're saying you have to do this, then somebody has to be responsible if it doesn't work out the way that they say it's not working out.
Right.
And unfortunately, in really big plans like that, and when things are pushed through so quickly, you can almost guarantee something's been shortcutted. You know what I mean? There's been a shortcut taken at some point, and we
Yeah.
also may not have all the information.
One
So
lady
do your due
who
diligence.
was injured was saying that she has to go through immunotherapy to to keep her body functioning
Yeah.
after the injury, and it costs her over $100,000 a year to do this. Well, the manufacturer gave her $590 total to compensate her for her injury, and she volunteered to be one of the trial members
Oh, wow.
during the so basically she signed papers saying, I won't hold you liable, but if I am injured, you'll pay for my medical expenses. They agreed to it, so that's what it was. It was one of the big three manufacturers, and
It's just a shame.
yeah. So, but public news, NBC reported on it. It was on the news. It was everywhere. We're not telling you something that's controversial. This is fact. So, $590 was given to her, and the biggest payout was less than $8,900 was the biggest payout to an injured person.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, when their cost is millions. Each person is. No wonder there's so many lawsuits going on. Anyways, we were going to talk about the Slovakian swimmer who passed out after her race. She didn't qualify for the semifinals. It was an Olympic swimmer. This was in Forbes also. You know what? I'm not going to read the whole article, but if you're wondering why she passed out, because they're talking about how a lot of different things can cause someone to pass out after competition activity. So there's neurological reasons. It says ranging from stroke
Cardiac,
to seizure
yeah.
to migraines. There are cardiovascular ones, like a brain not getting enough oxygen or blood flow, which can occur in the case of a heart attack. Orthostatic hypotension can result after physical activity. There are metabolic reasons, such as drop in blood sugar after an intense race like this. There's carbon dioxide levels going up, oxygen going down. But in her case, it was an asthma attack.
Right.
So she had an asthma attack right
She
after
was predisposed.
the race.
So they ended
Yeah.
up not being too surprised. I think they were alarmed when it happened, but then they go, okay, we know what this is attributed to. So
Yeah. So not a big thing to report on, but if you're wondering why this swimmer wasn't passed out after a race, that's what it was. NBC talked about Noah Lyles, who's the fastest man in the world. It says Noah Lyles believes his Olympics are over out of 4x100 relay, which ended up being an interesting race after COVID diagnosis. So this fastest man in the world, he got third place in the 200-meter race, which is supposed to be his best one. He got third, and he said it was because he had tested positive for COVID 2 days prior to the race. I believe this will be the end of my 24 Olympics. It is not the Olympics I dreamed of, but it has left me with so much joy in my heart, which was nice for him to say. But it was a little sad because 4 years ago, the other Olympics got all screwed up because of COVID too.
I know. I was just thinking to myself, I go, what's the funny thing about this one is that 4 years ago, if he had tested positive for COVID,
Oh yeah,
he would have
it
been
would have wrapped him in
quarantined.
Saran wrap.
Yeah, he would have been quarantined in his room. There would have been no coming back. And he tested positive, raced still, was
Yeah.
around everyone and it's okay because it's just the common cold now. I have to remind people, I think, because we still hear the word COVID and we're all like, "Ugh."
Apparently it's not as bad anymore as it was.
It's not. I mean, they put it right up
What
with
goes to show, it's if someone healthy gets it, it does act like a common cold.
Right.
You can actually
Or a mild flu.
run the 200 in 19.7 seconds,
I know, right?
fully sick with COVID if you're healthy. Now if you have comorbidities and other illnesses, you get COVID, it can be extremely serious.
Yeah.
But there you go.
He was less than a second from,
First place.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Less than half a second for first place.
So,
The first place was 19.46. So he was a quarter of a second
yeah.
from first place.
So now he did end up coming off of the field or the track in a wheelchair. He was pretty, he was pretty done.
He
And we
gave it all
know,
he had,
oh yeah.
You remember that movie, Boys in the Boat?
Yes, love that.
But the
I
novel
like the
is
book better.
amazing. But remember one of the kids, one of the 8 was sick,
Mm-hmm.
and he rested the whole time. He didn't go to the opening ceremonies, all that stuff, and then he raced and he did well.
Yeah.
So you can conjure up, if you need to, you can conjure up some strength. But you got to be
Absolutely.
healthy prior to, which is why we talk about wellness. Wellness, guys, is not a destination, it's a direction.
not.
You need to be moving toward wellness your entire life. And if you do, when you get hit with a virus like COVID or something else, you're going to still be able to run your race.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're not taking care of yourself, you get hit with the COVID virus, you're going to be in bed for a long time. You may end up in the hospital. That's the difference. It's not the virus. It's how you've been living your life until you get the virus.
And I think we've said this before, but there's a Muhammad Ali quote that you love,
Yeah.
which talks about your fight starts
He said
not
the fight is won or lost away from witnesses,
right.
in the gym, on the road, long before I dance under the lights.
Right. So it's not when you get hit with that
Yeah.
that illness that you start fighting.
Yeah.
If you begin training, and that's what it's about, is you have to train your body on how to get stronger so that you increase what he's been talking about is that general adaptation potential. It's that gap. So how much do you have in the tank before those illnesses actually make you sick? Right? Because you can be a little bit run down and kind of fly through that if you're still giving your body the right nutrients and you're sleeping enough, and like you can get through those things quite quickly. But somebody whose gap is much lower,
Yeah.
that's going to last them 2, 3, 4
I
weeks.
think if you're around our age, you remember the moment when Michael Jordan had to be carried off the court. Because the night before he was up all night throwing up, and he showed up weak. They said he had the flu. It wasn't the flu. Someone poisoned him. Someone put a laxative on his pizza and delivered it and
good
said
Lord.
to him, and because they wanted to sabotage the game. It was the NBA. I think it was the NBA playoffs or NBA finals, either way. But Scottie Pippen actually carries him, and it's one of the greatest moments in sports history. He scored like 40 points.
That's
And he
amazing.
played amazing, and they won the game, and they couldn't stop him. But he was deathly ill to the point where, like, after he scored his last point, someone had to carry him off the court. Same with Noah Lyles, having to be
amazing.
in a wheelchair after running a race, finishing third place, third best in the entire world,
Right.
while sick,
And we have some people that can't show up to work with a cold,
or
and they
menstrual
sit at a
cycles,
desk. Yeah, I'm telling you.
which
So-
I have no knowledge of.
Yeah, that's my pet peeve, not yours, really. So-
Right, right. Well, anyways, guys, I think we covered a lot of things. Don't age. Choose right now. You're mid-40s. You're not going to age. When you hit 60, you're not going to age then either. This is all hogwash. Don't believe a word of it. And
And start doing your research now. What can you begin to change? Make small changes to reduce the toxic load in your environment.
right. And
to
don't be
improve
afraid
your
of the
nutrition.
parvovirus B19.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
It's fine.
You've probably already had it. You're immune to it.
That's right.
So, anyways, thank you for listening. We love and appreciate you greatly. Please tune in next time. Tune in. That used to be like, if it was a TV, you tune in. You know,
Yeah,
change the
radios you used to
channel.
have to tune too.
Tune in. Okay, never mind. What do you say? Click in. Click in next time, and keep watching. We got more great information. I think we should do one whole episode on weight loss
Ooh.
at some point. Just because I'm writing that book now,
Yeah,
my third book.
that'll be
So,
fun.
All right. Take care. God bless you.
Bye.